Welcome to AFLEET 2017 tutorial 2 out of 5. In this video, I'll show you how to use the simple payback calculator. If you're going to buy some new vehicles and you're considering an alternative fuel vehicle, this calculator gives you a nice comparison between what the costs and emissions would be if you bought the conventional vehicle versus that of the alternative fuel vehicle. So let's take a look. Opening up AFLEET. So let's see what you would need to fill in on the inputs page. So if we're just looking at payback, we can ignore all these tabs over here. All we care about for this tutorial is inputs, the payback calculator, and the outputs. So here we are on the inputs tab. And just for reference, you can tell which sections you need for which calculator options by just mousing over the green areas. As you can see, primary vehicle location is used in payback, TCO, IR, and footprint, which is everything. But not all of them are. So like down here, we've got fueling information. Mouse over this and it says that, like for sensitivity, for instance, is only used in payback. So you don't need to fill that out for any of the other ones. But you need the fueling type for TCO and IR, so I'd still fill those out. Okay, so let's start from the top. You're thinking about buying some new vehicles and you'd like to compare the cost and emissions of those of the regular conventional vehicles with perhaps an alternative fuel counterpart. So the first, what you're going to do is choose what state you're in, because this will affect pricing information and yeah, I think a few other things too, but we'll just go with the default. And it depends on what you're looking at. So for this, I'm just going to, I guess we could do heavy duty, but let's just go with light duty. So let's say we are going to get I don't want a regular car. Let's choose a police car. Yeah. Let's choose a police car. Okay, so we're looking at a regular police car and we're thinking about buying 5 police cars. So in the last video, I mentioned that I basically made these red. I don't think they'll be red for you, just to kind of remind me that these are the baselines that we're comparing the vehicles against. So gasoline is the regular assumption for the light duties, and then for diesel is the assumption for heavy duties. And if you're just, if you're trying to remember which one is which, you can see like down here that, heavy duty fleet right here, it's blocked out for diesel because that's the baseline. And light duty right here is blocked out for gasoline because that's the baseline. So anyway, yeah, so okay, so we're thinking about buying 5 new police cars. That's the default gasoline. And let's just say that we've already input our fuel economy price. We've got this information. We know how many miles we're planning on driving. If you want to change this, you could, these are the default values, but you can change this just by typing in. So let's say it was just, for whatever reason, let's say it was 10,000 miles a year per vehicle. Then here we go, type that in. Oh, but no, you actually want to use the default value after all, or you want to switch it back. It's really easy to do. All you have to do is just type in equals, whoop, the default. Enter. You're good to go, back to the way it was before. So feel free to type in any values you want. It's really easy. The defaults are just right over here. If you want to reset it, don't be afraid of making those changes. So, okay, let's say we're looking at let's just say we're looking at all of them. Usually you wouldn't, but I just like looking at all of them because it's a good example. You can just do this by Control D. We'll fill them all out. Or you can also, it's Excel, so you can click and drag the edge and it'll do that for you. And you know what, actually, I changed my mind. I don't want to look at renewable diesel, because let's say it's not in my state, which it's not, because I've chosen Illinois, and it's not in Illinois, so it's not my state. And let's say I don't want to look at hybrid electric vehicles, or diesel, because diesel is still not really renewable. Okay, so put in 0 for the ones that you don't want to look at, put in the same number as before as the baseline for the ones that you do want to look at. And then there we go. Yeah. So refueling information, we need it for Payback. Choose public station or private station. This is essentially, if you choose private station if it's your own, if you're owning the station, essentially. This has infrastructure costs of its own, so if you want to take that into account, you can just go right over here and click on, there we go, the hyperlink. It'll bring you to the infrastructure inputs. And if you wanted to really do an analysis of all of these, you'd have to fill out this entire table. But if you're only comparing a few things, like let's say gasoline, yeah, here we go. Gasoline, and let's say you're comparing electric vehicles, you only have to fill out like these two. You have to fill out as many as you'd be comparing for. But this is only if you're building your own infrastructure for a station. And there's different options, as you can see. So for the most part, you can just kind of ignore that. But if you want to get into the details, you can. And fuel price sensitivity, if you want to, you can include it. And if you want to go more in depth, you can, again, click the hyperlink and take a look at all the fuel price sensitivity information. Yeah. Oh, I should probably mention, as you can see right here, there's a whole bunch of error messages right here. That is because there's no primary fuel price listed for renewable diesel, because it's relatively new to the market, and we didn't have that data when we made the tool. So we're getting some errors because of that. But that's one of the things that you should know about AFLEET. It works fine. Don't be afraid if you see an error message. It's probably not your fault. Just, you can always trace these messages back if you're really wondering where they're coming from, just by looking up at the formulas. But it happens sometimes. Okay, just nothing to be afraid of. So we filled that out. Let's just go public station. Let's say we don't have our own. I'm not taking sensitivity into account. Okay, so fuel and DEF price, yes, we need this for Payback. So we've got defaults right here. You can change it if you have different information. I'm just going to leave it like that. And as you can see, the pricing's different, so, things to take into consideration. And this whole section right here is the total cost of ownership inputs. Just ignore that, because we're not doing that. Fuel production assumptions, we do not ignore this. This is used in Payback, and actually, yeah, this is used in every single calculator. This is just for the environmental side of things, like where are the feedstocks for the fuels that you're using, where are they coming from? What's the source of the electricity? For instance, maybe you live in a section of the US where they generate electricity in a much more environmentally friendly way than in another part of the US. So in that case, it does make a difference in terms of the pollutants and such that go into, where you're getting your fuel from. So if you don't know, for the most part, unless if you're really looking at the environmental sides. If you don't know where your things are coming from, we'll just leave it at the default. The default is the most common one. It's only really interesting for things like natural gas. If you're getting renewable natural gas, then it's coming from a source that is not just the regular one. So you'd want to choose a different option. So just things to think about. Okay, so then petroleum use, GHGs, and air pollutant options. In the previous versions of AFLEET, you would not see this. It would just be option 1, is just the way all the calculations would come out. But now there are new options. There's more choices now. So if you want to just do the baseline, put in 1. If you want a more comprehensive look at the air pollutants, if you're looking at more upstream stuff as well, you can choose 2. If you want like the most comprehensive one, you can choose 3, but this is only for light duty vehicles because there isn't enough data right now to include heavy duty vehicles. And you can choose yes or no for these things. All right, cool. And then this is the last section of the inputs page. This is for the idling reduction calculator. You can just completely ignore this if you're just doing payback. It won't affect you. Yeah, so it takes the longest filling out the inputs page, but once you get that, woo, you can click on outputs and you are good to go. All right, so as you can see right here, if we're just doing, this is just a simple payback right here. With the data that we put in, it looks like with a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, we'd get paid back in 5 years. And we wouldn't really, these aren't options then for the data that we put in. Yeah, and then it runs again. We've got externality costs and energy use and greenhouse gas emissions and petroleum use and all of that. So let's just switch this. I think it might turn out a little bit nicer if I... Yeah, so as you can see over here, yeah, geez, that got worse. 20 years payback. But here's the thing, I mean, we just go with this just does the numbers. It's not going to lie to you and tell you that one alternative fuel is a great choice if the numbers tell you that it's not. So that's one of the things about this tool. It gives you an unbiased viewpoint. Usually numbers are a lot better, but I guess that's just what we inputted. Yeah, so then anyway, so numbers aside, you've got these graphs down here, which is basically just all the values and stuff up here put into a nice little visual form if you prefer that. This is light duty. You don't see anything because all our heavy duty values we just ignored and left as 0. Light duty, heavy duty, light duty. And like I said before, you see all these error messages on the side. It's supposed to be like that. You didn't do anything wrong. So, yeah. And if you want to, you can look at the payback, the actual where the calculations are actually happening, because there are no calculations happening on the outputs tab. It's just drawing on values from the payback tab. Yellow means you might want to look at the value too. You can change it if you want. Yeah, I already showed you infrastructure, got fuel price stuff. Yeah, this is a pretty big sheet. Plus, when you take into consideration there's all these plus signs right here, it's hiding a lot of what's actually going on. Just for sanity's sake. But yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I'm gonna do something that you don't do this because it won't give you results that make any sense. But I know that this will show you the thing that I want to show. So if let's say I put in 4 for diesel, notice how this is red and in parentheses. That is because the value is negative, and it's apparently has to do with the way accountants, you're in the red, so to speak. So you'll see it down here, this is negative. So Payback it can really be a beast if you're comparing a ton of options, mainly because of the data collection. If you're looking at all of these different vehicles, or like all of these different vehicles, and you're trying to find the fuel economy information and the purchasing price and all of that stuff, it's gonna be a lot. So that's honestly the hardest part of using the tool is getting the data to be right. But once you've got that, it's not that bad. I hope this helped. Feel free to check out tutorials part 3, 4, and 5 if you're interested, or go back and look at part 1.